political radicalism needs a catalyst. Political radicalism does not come out of peace, prosperity, rising wages, stable families, church attendance, and happy people. Happy people, grateful people do not get behind Vladimir Lenin, and they certainly don't get behind Chavez or Castro.
That's right.
People that own nothing, that feel like their property is diminishing, or they don't have property, or their dollar is diminishing in value, they start to look for alternatives. And so the political project in front of us as conservatives should be, how do we actually de-radicalize the country in the next couple of years? That's my obsession. And that's why I say I try not to think about all this other stuff, because it just, it's so much brain space. My number one obsession is I know what is coming next.
France is facing an escalating crisis that has shaken its foundations. Public anger is boiling over due to cuts in key public services and government expenditure. Hospitals, transport, education, and social support systems are bearing the brunt of austerity, and ordinary citizens feel abandoned. How does a nation that once projected stability and wealth now find itself struggling to provide for its own people? Could these cuts mark the beginning of a deeper social breakdown, or will they force France to confront realities it has long ignored? For decades, France enjoyed vast inflows of resources and wealth from African states, particularly those in the Alliance of Sahel states. But since these nations reclaimed control of their resources and broke from French dominance, the flow of revenue to Paris has slowed drastically. What happens when a former empire loses its lifeline? Can a nation that relied so heavily on external exploitation adapt to a world where it must depend on its own productivity? Or is this the true cost of colonialism finally catching up with Europe? Observers point out that it has taken less than 3 years of reduced inflows from Africa to bring France to this point of turmoil. Strikes, protests, and unrest are becoming the new normal. Imagine the impact: decades of dependency unraveled in just a few short years. Is this not proof that the prosperity France once flaunted was built on fragile foundations? Should the French people direct their anger at their government's failure to prepare for a post-colonial world rather than at the inevitable reforms?
Just so that people know, I have been against incompetence. I've been against undemocratic practice. I've been against leadership that is insensitive and wicked for 35 good years. And one of the things I have done in the process is to use my voice as an advocate for good governance to not only condemn bad governance, but to call out terrible leaders in this country. And Tinubu is not different. And I have used my voice and my position, whatever it is in society, to make this very clear. That one of the things I do not and will never tolerate is people in government who condone themselves in criminal ways. And when I say criminal, it has so many dimensions. And this might include or not be limited to the fact that they may themselves be criminals, having participated in organized crime or unorganized crime, or participating currently in crimes against humanity, corruption, and any crime that can be considered as criminal. And this is where I am different from others, because I've heard people who say to me, well, maybe you have to wait for the courts to declare somebody a criminal before you can attach such a title to anybody. But the position is that what I determine to be criminal is well defined in my own dictionary. And but is most importantly established by the fact that I have a right to state what I believe honestly to be my position on governance and those who are governing us. And that is what is most sacrosanct. The reason I'm giving this background is not to be defensive, it's just so that you will know that even in the course of this conversation, I will say things that may not be acceptable or palatable to those in power. But they can't do anything about it, to me, because that is the way democracy is established. And anybody, and I've said this, who is not willing or ready to understand that democracy includes the freedom of speech, movement, and association, should not participate in the democratic process. And that's a standing position I've had. And that is why you find me not only saying or calling out leaders who are terrible or who organize or conduct themselves in criminal ways. I also defend others who use their voice to call them out wherever and whenever it is necessary. So the argument is not what I have said. It is what I have the right to say, and which becomes the most important thing to me at all times. So that is what it is. And I'm glad that there's a national debate about it, probably international debate, because they have internationalized this by going to Twitter and also Facebook. And they have also claimed that they wrote me a letter to come and retract my statement and also apologize to the president. But let me remind them that the same offer was given to me under Buhari regime when we organized Revolution Now revolt against that regime. After 2 weeks in detention, they sent a delegation to ask me to retract and apologize to Buhari for organizing a protest, and I rejected it. And as a result, I spent 5 months in detention and never apologized today until they came and withdrew their nonsense case. So for Nigerians, my advice to you is do not bother about this and don't worry about me, but you should worry about a society in which you live where you cannot express yourself, because that is a fundamental human right. And to the DSS, let me just say that, you know, we've been through this before. And I had thought that you'd have learned your lesson under Buhari, but since you have not learned anything, we go again. But to the public, you can perish the thought that I will retract my statement or apologize to Tinubu over my statements. That is not going to happen.
What is unfolding in France is not just about economics, it is about truth and accountability. The French government has been slow to level with its population, instead framing cuts as temporary hardships. But can citizens be expected to endure sacrifice without transparency? Would the French public respond differently if their leaders admitted that the wealth once siphoned from Africa is gone forever? Or does this silence reveal an unwillingness to face history honestly? France today is a case study in how the collapse of exploitation abroad can destabilize the heart of a nation at home. As African nations rise, reclaiming their sovereignty and resources, Europe faces the consequences of centuries of extraction. For viewers watching, the real question is this: if a nation like France is shaken this deeply, what does the future hold for other Western powers facing similar losses? We will continue to bring you the bold analysis you won't find elsewhere, so make sure you stay connected with us for more. History is unfolding before our eyes, and it demands our attention. Remember, the power to change the future begins with the courage to face the truth today.